Like many African countries during the first half of the 20th century, the state formerly known as Southern Rhodesia was a country with formidable yet beautiful landscape that the railways had to fight against to build fast rail networks, and this was the same for Rhodesian Railways. Construction began in 1892 under the watch of the British colonialists, and stretched from southern Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, to South Africa. Due to the size of the railway, the decision was made to have the railway be mainly handled by Garratt locomotives, instead of the more common single-framed engines, which is where we get to the topic of this episode, the Class 15As. Based on the Class 15 Garratts from 1930, 40 would be built and delivered from 1949 to 1952 by the Bayer Peacock Company of Manchester for both heavy freight and passenger trains on the route between Bulawayo and Mahikeng. With a tractive effort of 47,490 pounds, these Double Hudsons were not the most powerful Garratts ever built, but were more than ideal for the jobs asked of them. Even though they were similar to the 15th class, they did have some differences, such as an increased boiler pressure from 180 to 200 psi, and the sloping of the tanks intended to make them more aesthetically pleasing. Between 1980 and 1983, the now National Railways of Zimbabwe decided to give their remaining Garratts that hadn't been sold or retired complete overhauls to bring them to a modern and unified standard, with them gaining names of African wildlife, such as number 396, Igogo, meaning clipper springer in English, and number 406, Ikolo, or hornbill. Despite being around 50 years old, the class would remain in service for a lot longer than planned due to the continuing economic downturn in Zimbabwe during the 90s. However, by the turn of the 2000s, the railway chose to retire all steam locomotives, with the last of the Garratts being taken out of service once repairs were in order. Even though the engines were not being used, they were not scrapped but instead used for spare parts, and that's how they remain today. Although, not all the 15As were done proving their value. Between 2006 and 2007, 10 Garratts of various designs were given minor repairs and put back into service, including 4 of the 15As, number 386, Spring Hare, number 395, number 416, Porcupine, and number 424, Lion. The engines would stay in service until 386 and 424 were taken out of service during the early 2010s, with 395 and 416 being kept in service during 2016. However, this wasn't the only way members of the class stayed in service during the 2010s. 5 of the engines were acquired by the Hwange Colliery in Zimbabwe for shunting duties and working transfers at Thompson Junction. The locomotives bought were number 370, Ipalapala, or Kudu, number 395, Ithaca, or Roan Antelope, number 396, Igogo, or Clip Springer, number 415, Ichime, or Great Bustard, and number 423, Idube, or Zebra, and were kept in service until December 2014 when they were taken out of service for various mechanical issues. There are also several engines preserved at museums, number 350 in Kadoma, number 352 on display at Francistown Station in modern-day Botswana, number 398 at Steam Inc. near Wellington in New Zealand, and number 401 at the Railway Museum of Livingstone in Zambia.